Do you need to have a website in order to be successful on Pinterest? That's exactly what I'm going to break down in today's episode. I'm Emily Bales. I'm a Pinterest marketing and ad strategist, and for 4.5 years now, I've helped my clients and my students increase their traffic and turn it into profit through the power of Pinterest marketing. So before we jump into, do you need a website? Do you not need a website? And the answer, spoiler alert, is actually yes and no. So first, let's talk about how Pinterest functions. And then I think that's gonna make more sense to you as I do get into deciding what do I need to have in place? What business foundations do I need to have in order for it to make sense for me to invest my time, my energy, maybe money into marketing on Pinterest. So Pinterest is a visual search engine, and it's an amazing and unique platform. People come to Pinterest to plan for life moments, and it really helps them visualize and get these great ideas for planning out their life. So I like to consider Pinterest users pinners or planners. So that's also why, as a business owner marketing on the platform, you're always having to think in advance of trends. Now, let's get back to how Pinterest functions though. Because the Pinterest user is actively searching when they go to the platform, that means they're going to the search bar and typing in what they want ideas and inspiration for. That means as the business owner, in order to be discovered, you don't have to have some huge following. You don't have to have some large name brand. All you have to understand is what keywords your audience is actively searching for. And that's one thing that is truly beautiful about Pinterest, is that you don't have to be a big business or have a huge following in order to be successful, but you do need to do your keyword research and have a good handle and understanding on what keywords your audience is actively searching for. So I highly recommend that if you do find that, yes, Pinterest makes sense for my business right now, I have these foundations in place, I'm ready to get started, you are going to want to do keyword research. And I do have another YouTube episode all about keyword research, and I highly recommend checking it out, because you are going to want to do that keyword research and then optimize your entire account and all content you're creating utilizing keywords. And of course, the keywords you're using for your content, they need to be relevant to that content, but they also need to be the words that your audience is actively searching. When you optimize your account and your content, what you're helping Pinterest do is ultimately understand who you are and who you serve, so then they can show your content to the appropriate audience. So when you are thinking about utilizing Pinterest and getting started on the platform, because I'm sure you're thinking, okay, this all sounds great, Emily, but now get to it. What do I need to have in place for my business in order for this to make sense? So two really popular ways to make money online is to start an Etsy shop or to start a TPT store. And if you aren't familiar with TPT, it just stands for Teachers Pay Teachers. So what these two platforms actually do have in common is that they are essentially a platform that people can become or open a shop on. And so people will start their TPT store or they will start their Etsy shop, and they can sell and make money on these platforms, which is really wonderful, especially in the beginning if maybe they don't have the funds or the resources, or maybe they're trying to test out a few products and they're not ready to, for whatever reason, create their own website. They can sell on these online shops essentially. And it's a wonderful way to make money, like I mentioned. And I would say, especially, really with both Etsy sellers, what they are selling on the platform, and also TPT sellers, it really would be a misstep to not market on Pinterest, because I can truly say hands down for both of these different, models or types of businesses, the Etsy shop or the TPT store, your audience is 1000% active in utilizing Pinterest. So both of these businesses could be using and should be using Pinterest. But here's what comes into play with a website. And this is where I've been getting questions on social media. I feel like especially TikTok, people will be asking me,
well, can I, claim my Stan store? Or can I claim, one of those other places where you can essentially, host your links or your affiliates or, whatever you're trying to promote?
And the thing is you actually can't claim, for example, a stand store. And the reason for that being, or a link tree. Link tree is another really popular one. I was like searching my brain for that word, but these are just examples of places where you can essentially like house links that you want to share. And the reason why you can't claim them is because you don't own that domain. So I was recently just explaining to one of my students that when you are marketing on Pinterest, it is a really important step when you're setting up your account to claim your domain. So in order to claim your domain, you have to have a domain. So for example, my domain is emilyvales.com. I bought that domain, I own it, I actually have my website set up. So if you bought a domain, but you never really set up a website, then it's still not going to help you a lot to claim that on Pinterest, okay? So that's one important piece of the puzzle, is not only to buy a domain, but then to actually have your website set up. And what happens when you have claimed your domain is you essentially are giving Pinterest different and more information about who you are, and ultimately your pins are indexed differently by Pinterest when you have that claimed domain. And I find that, and it's really just a fact, that pins that are directed to that confirmed domain perform better than pins that go to a third-party platform. So I personally direct my pins to a few different places. And the thing that can be a little bit challenging about that is you are kind of dividing up your traffic. So if I'm looking at my website analytics versus my Kajabi analytics versus my YouTube analytics, you know, it is a little bit divided up because I am sending Pinterest traffic to all those different places. And I do have a reason and a strategy for that. So for example, I am creating a lot of nurture content on YouTube. So I'm really, you know, providing my audience information, helping them solve a problem, and that content performs well on Pinterest. However, because it's directed to YouTube, those pins that I've created and directed them to unique YouTube episodes, they are not indexed the same as the pins that are directed to my blog. Or I have a hire form on my website, so people can go to my website and fill out a form to hire a Pinterest manager. I direct pins even to that hire form. So anything that's going to my website is actually indexed differently. So when you are thinking about getting started on Pinterest, if you just have a stand store or essentially just one link that you use, and maybe that link has a couple of different affiliates or maybe even a discount code for something, Pinterest isn't going to make as much sense for you right now. And I believe that you probably don't have the foundations in place that you need to in order to really reap the benefits of using the platform. And it's not to say that you couldn't get your account set up and go ahead and grab your handle, make sure you have a business account, maybe even start creating boards, especially when you know the content that you are going to be talking about regularly. However, to be pinning as many times as you should a day, and I recommend nothing insane, but at least 3 to 5 times a day, I think you're going to be a little disappointed in your results when you are pinning the same pin over and over again. And the reason for that being is because that's actually not a best practice, and that could even get your account disabled. And if you are wondering about, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm like, this spiraled so quickly. Go back and watch my YouTube episode about account suspensions, what happens when your account does get suspended, what you can do to get that reinstated, and also, you know, making sure that you're following best practices. And to pin the same link over and over again, that's really not a best practice. So for those who are not there yet, they don't have a website, they're not creating content, they don't have multiple products, you're just not quite there yet for Pinterest to really make sense. Now, if you have your own website and maybe you have 3 or 4 products, you absolutely could be utilizing Pinterest. There's no magic number in regards to how many products you have to have, or, you know, do you have to have a blog? There's no requirements like that, but it's just understanding that as a best practice, Pinterest really thrives off of fresh content. And if you're pinning the same link over and over again, that's not fresh. And once again, I have another YouTube episode all about essentially focusing on fresh content, what constitutes fresh content. I would love for you to check out that video, but it's just important to understand really, does Pinterest make sense for me right now? And if you want to utilize Pinterest in the future, what you need to start thinking about and planning. And the whole thing is like, I'm not telling you to go set up a website just so you can use Pinterest. I really believe that, you know, this is like heartfelt advice. as you are really focusing on building your brand and your business, that it is a really important foundational piece to just have your own website. And I say that because you hear, terrible stories of somebody having, a few 100,000 followers on Instagram, and maybe they were making amazing money. But the thing that stinks is we don't own those platforms. And at any time, we can either have it hacked or something can happen and we lose access to that. And that's really unfortunate. I've even had people tell me that they had their Etsy shop shut down. Now, I don't hear about that as much as people sharing that they lost their Instagram account. I've had so many people tell me that they lost it at, 50,000, 100,000 followers. And it takes time and effort to build up, and it's really disheartening. But when you own your own website, that's not something that somebody can just shut down one day, right? So it's really important to have that foundational piece in place. And then when you're thinking about building your website and having that place where you're directing traffic that you own, then you can also start building your email list, which is also an asset, so that you're not just hoping and praying that people click on your link and you're making affiliate income, or that maybe if you sell this product, you'll make additional income. These are things that, even if you do want to lean into affiliate marketing, I still really think it's important to have your website and to have an email list, because then you can share those affiliates and offers that you really believe in and love, through email marketing, right? Especially because, and once again, go back to the suspension video if you want to learn more about it. But if you are pinning affiliate links over and over again on Pinterest, that could also get your account banned. Now, I've thrown that out there a couple of times, and you're probably thinking,
oh my gosh, this sounds way too overwhelming, and that it would be very easy to be banned.
And honestly, I have been on Pinterest for 4.5 years, and it's not something that I've experienced it being common. I would say that, if you are glaringly not following best practices, or sharing way too many affiliate links, you could fall into that category. But I don't want you to be scared of getting started on the platform. But going back to the whole point of this episode, I've gone off on a couple of little rabbit trails here. The whole point being is, technically, you don't have to have a website to utilize Pinterest. But me just giving you business advice, I truly believe that it's in your best interest that if you are building this for the long term, that you should have that in place. Now, one thing that, this is a caveat, I teach women how to start their Pinterest management business, and it lights me up. I absolutely love helping people start this journey, and what ultimately I started 4.5 years ago. And I actually don't tell my students to set up their website right away. So I know you're like,
oh my gosh, this is conflicting.
But what I want to share about that is that with my students, especially when you just started, it's really important for me to help them get quick wins. And you truly do not have to have a website in order to get clients. So it's one of those things that once you've gotten some clients and you're starting to make some income, then you can talk about or look into maybe having a 1-page website to get started, and then increasing to a 5-page website. But for those of you who have places that you regularly want to be sending traffic, and maybe you've been at it for 6 months or maybe a year, then I highly recommend having a website, a place you own, and building that email list. Now, back to my Etsy shop sellers and my TPT sellers, you absolutely could drive all of your traffic to just your Etsy shop or just your TPT shop. And especially if you have multiple products, then you're not going to be pinning the same link over and over again by any means, because some of my TPT sellers, they have dozens or maybe even like hundreds of products. So they don't have to worry about pinning the same products over and over again. But once again, the thing I want to reiterate is that it's nice to have other types of content to serve your business. And I think that if you are just going to stick with your Etsy shop or your TPT and not get a website set up, then it's going to be important for you to get a little playful or creative with how you're sharing your products and your pins, especially video pins. I think those could be really powerful with helping your audience get ideas and inspiration, so that if you don't have long form nurture content, that you can still serve them, give them tips, ideas, how-tos, guides through using your product. And you can hook them in that way and kind of give them those ideas and inspiration and it really serves them even if they're not ready to buy just yet. So hopefully that kind of gives you an idea if you feel very strongly about just keeping your Etsy shop, just keeping your TPT, not ultimately getting your website set up. I do want to mention though, like I said, you cannot claim your Etsy shop. At one point you used to be able to, but Pinterest does not allow you to claim that anymore. You cannot claim a TPT store. Once again, you don't own those platforms, so you can't claim that domain. So your pins are going to be indexed differently, and I just find that they don't perform as well. So if you are in this for the long haul where you're like,
Emily, this is what I'm doing for the next 5, 10, I'm working on scaling this indefinitely.
I really think that having a website is going to not just benefit you on Pinterest, but for your business in general. And that might be an unpopular opinion, but I just have to give my 2 cents this week. So when you were thinking about getting started on Pinterest, like I said, if you were falling into that category where maybe you even just have a landing page, and that was me at first, I just had a landing page on Flowdesk, and essentially it was like, sign up for my email list and I'll send you this free guide. That's totally fine. And you could even create a couple of pins for that landing page, but you're not really ready to implement a full Pinterest strategy where you're pinning 3 to 5 times a day and focusing on different types of seasonal content, all of the things that really help you grow long-term on Pinterest. Because once again, if it's just like that Flowdesk landing page or, the Linktree, you're just not gonna see the same results. And plus you could fall into bad practices if you're pinning that same link over and over again. So I think that I covered it all. Let me know what questions you have. This was just something that's come up for me multiple times, and I felt that people just weren't really understanding what it means to claim your domain, what that looks like, and I would be more than happy to give you a tutorial on what that looks like to claim your domain. So if you're like, Emily, I have a website, I don't know if it's claimed, I don't know what that means to claim it, you can go to your Pinterest page and you can actually check to see if it's claimed. It would have a globe and a check mark, and you could see that, or even going into the settings where your website is, it'll let you know if it's been claimed at any point in time. But if you want to claim it, you essentially just take a little piece of code from Pinterest and install that in the header script of your website. So I use Code Injector, I believe. And anyways, it allows me to very simply take that piece of code and install that in the header script of my website. Now that might sound complicated, but I am not a web designer. I don't do coding. I know how to do the most important things on the back end, and I'm telling you, it's not complicated. But if you would like to see a video on that, I would be more than happy to create another episode specifically on that. So let me know what questions you have. I hope you found this helpful, and be sure to like this video. Let me know in the comments what questions you have, and subscribe to my channel. That's all I ask of you. It really helps me grow and come back and serve you every week. So I can't wait to see you in next week's episode. Bye for now, friends.